Welcome back, guys. We got some stuff to talk about. So it's been a while since I made a video. Had a lot of stuff going on with work, with the other vehicles, but I wanted to come in here and let you guys know about the new torque converter, how it's doing, and also about a little issue I had after I installed the new torque converter. So you guys that have been keeping up with me on social media already know this is the converter we ended up getting. It was a Jegs XHD torque converter, and this is the 3200 RPM torque converter, part number 60429. And yes, this is the same torque converter that Matt Happel over at Sloppy Mechanics has talked about. Not sure how you pronounce it, but Nivlak, however you pronounce that. He's actually running the same torque converter, I believe, in the Nova that he has at about 900 wheel horsepower, and it's doing well for him. So, you know, there was a little discount going on. Ended up getting it for about $450, hoping that it would do the job. If you haven't watched the video of the last track day of Chaos Theory here, I highly suggest you go back and watch that video first so you kind of understand what's going on and what led me to get this converter. But basically, we were just blowing through our B&M converter bad. This is the B&M converter that we had. It's a B&M nitrous whole shot converter. It's balloon plated, supposed to be. It's like a $700 converter, guys. But it just was not holding the power we were making at all. I mean, we were just blowing right through it. Anything over gate pressure, it was just, I was bouncing the rev limiter for the full 1/8 mile. This thing was probably sucking down, you know, 150 horsepower of whatever we were putting down. It was just, it was no bueno. It was no good, guys. So we had to do something about it. I did not want to spend money on a big converter, and I want to say, first of all your suggestions that you guys put, I asked for suggestions on a torque converter. You know, people threw out a bunch of suggestions, PTC, well, there was a bunch of suggestions, and I did check into all those guys. The problem I had was the cheapest converter that all those people were wanting to set me on was a $900 converter. I think PTC wanted to put me on a $1,200 converter, and I am aware that this car probably is going to need a converter like that in the future, but right now I just didn't have the money for it. I wanted to get something that, you know, could kind of hold me over until then, especially since we're still running this manual valve body turbo 350. Not sure how much longer that transmission is going to hold up anyway, so I didn't want to spend a bunch of money on a converter. So this is what we got. Went ahead, I threw the converter in off video. Guys, I have not had a lot of time to do squat. This time of year, my job is just non-stop, so I had to work on this thing pretty much, you know, 20 minutes here, 30 minutes there. Did not feel like dragging a camera out. You guys have seen me put converters and transmissions and crap in these cars time and time again, so it really didn't feel like it was worth it. So I went ahead and threw it in, took the car out to test drive it, to check out the new converter, and this happened. No idea what's going on, why it's popping like that. Guess the data log's in order. Am I losing crank signal or something? It's never done that before. Like, this car has never done that before, ever. It's like as soon as it's starting to go into boost, wait. Well, I hooked my map sensor lead back up. Not sure what's going on, guys. I got data log running now. I can tell you already, this converter's way hella tighter than the old one. Because it's actually, as soon as I give it gas now, it's starting to pull forward like. Yeah, I don't know what that's all about, guys. I'm gonna have to look at the data log. As soon as it starts to build boost, it's just cutting out. Okay, I'm losing crank signal, because when it done that, my freaking tack dropped down to 0. So we got to try to get this girl home. As you can see from that video, we were losing crank signal. Now the funny thing about that is the very last pass we made in the last track day video, this thing cut out like that, but it didn't do it until I tried to push it up to like 17 pounds of boost. And somebody actually made, I don't remember who it was, but somebody actually made the comment on that video that it looked like I was losing crank signal, and I was real dismissive about it. I was like, nah, man, I think I just hit boost cut or something like that. Well, turns out he was right. That's exactly what was happening. So I called Brett Spence, and I was talking to him after I looked at my data log of driving around. And, you know, he confirmed, he's like, yeah, man, you're losing crank signal. So then it became a game of trying to figure out why I was losing crank signal. And the thing that made this, I don't know how to say it, guys. The thing that made this kind of just weird to me is it only seemed to be doing it as I was coming into boost. Like just cruising around, the car was running great. Part throttle, the car was running great. But as soon as it would come in at like 1 or 2 pounds of boost, boom, it would lose crank signal. So that kind of discouraged me, because I started thinking, you know, we might have an issue where maybe the converter, maybe there's too much pressure from the transmission on the converter and it's pushing the crank forward against the thrust bearing, and you know, maybe it's moving the reluctor wheel on the back of the crankshaft out of alignment with the crank sensor. So you guys know how I am. I always go to worst case scenario first. So honestly, that discouraged me for like 2 weeks to even look at this thing. Like I left it sitting in here for about 2 weeks, didn't even want to touch it. So finally the other day, I decided to put it up on jack stands, crawl under there and look at it. And so I crawl under there, and the first thing I want to do is check the in play on the crank to see if that's what's going on. Because if it is eating the thrust bearing, you know, I should have a good amount of in play in the crankshaft at this point. So I checked the in play, and it's almost non-existent, guys. I mean, it's still within spec. Everything's good. I can just barely move that crank with a screwdriver. So I'm like, well, obviously that's not the problem. So let's move on to the sensor. So I dropped the starter, I unplugged the sensor, and the first thing I noticed is when I unplugged the sensor, as soon as I pulled up this little tab here, it pretty much just fell off the sensor, which it shouldn't do, because these pins right here, you know, they're kind of spring loaded, and I'm not sure how good a shot I can get with the camera, but you know, these pins are kind of spring loaded, and they, you know, as you put this onto the sensor, they should kind of hold on the pins. Even if this clip right here, the safety clip, wasn't here, like it should be a secure fit. Well, it wasn't. I mean, I pulled this back and it just kind of fell off. So at that point, I knew pretty much that at bare minimum, part of my issue was going to be this connector here. Now, this is going to be real hard to show on camera because it's probably not going to be very focused. If you look at these pins right here, you know, there's springiness to them. Like up in here, this area right here, it should be springy. So when the pin from the sensor goes in there, you know, it engages nice and firm, and it makes contact with the upper part here, especially of the pin. Well, these two here look good, and I believe this is the ground and the 5-volt power, or it might be opposite. The one that did not look good was the actual signal wire that goes back to the ECU. And again, I really wish I had a good camera I could show this, but if you look right here, it's not gonna focus. The little metal strip that should be springy so it grabs the pin of the connector when it goes in it, it's completely compressed flat. That was what I was noticing when I looked at the end of the connector. Like this is just totally compressed flat. And what I also noticed is this is all black here. Like electricity's been arcing off of it. If you've ever like bridged the gap on a battery or something, you notice it always leaves that, you know, that black behind, that burnt black. So that told me right there, my signal wire was not getting a good connection. So the first thing I did, I went ahead and I cut this guy off because I knew I was going to have to replace it. And I've actually got a bunch of these guys laying in a box over here where I cut connectors off old harnesses when I do swaps and don't use the harness, just so I've got them for stuff like this. So basically what happened was I cut the old connector off. I went ahead, I attached a new connector to my harness, plugged it in, took the car for a test drive, and as you're about to see, it's running fantastic now. Way tighter. I'm on my drag radials, so I don't want to drive too much. This asphalt eats these drag radials up. So I want to do a couple more roll-ons, make sure the problem's fixed, and then I want to try to put it on the two-step with the new converter and see if it'll build any boost, because that's what I'm worried about, because this converter is just so much tighter. Feel the shifts a lot more now too because of the tighter converter. Before the B&M converter was so sloppy, like you almost couldn't feel the shifts. Now I can really feel that it's popping those shifts. I thought about turning the boost control on, but I've got it set to about 17 pounds right now, which probably not a good idea. We'll save that for testing at the track. But I do want to go somewhere and test this two-step, see if it'll build any boost. Try the two-step, see if it'll build any boost, because that's something I'm really worried about with the tighter converter. And hell, it may not even get to the two-step, because I believe I still got the two-step set at like 3,200 or 3,400, and I doubt it's probably going to spin the tires. is what I'm trying to say, before it reaches the two-step. If it starts spinning the tires, then I'm just going to have to set the two-step lower until I get a transmission with a trans brake. So let's see what happens. We built some boost. That was at least 3 pounds. It actually built boost faster, but it did spin the tires a little bit while it was doing it. So it actually built boost faster with this converter. I wasn't expecting that. We might be in for some fun. We're going to turn the boost controller on, just see what happens. But we're going to wait till we're in second gear before we lay into it. Okay. Well, that was something. Okay, boost control back off. We turn it back off. She made some boosties. Well, I'll go ahead and tell you guys, because I don't know if you can see it on camera or not, but the oil pressure ain't too great right now. I'm cruising at 1500 RPMs and we've only got 26 PSI. But obviously our problem's fixed. And that last pull felt really good. I'm not sure how much boost we made. I was just watching the road. But that last pull felt really good. Yeah, so that's pretty much it, guys. That was my problem, was this pin right here. Just something you need to check if you ever have this issue, you know, where you're losing crank signal. It's not always the sensor, guys. Sometimes it's just the connector, and you can actually buy these connectors on eBay too if you need them. But check over your pins real good. Make sure they're not squished down like that one was in there and all charred, where it wasn't getting a good connection, and the you know, the electricity was having to jump the gap there. So the new converter is working great, guys. It's a lot tighter than the old one. You can tell it in the video. The old B&M converter here, I mean, I used to have to rev the car to like $4 grand just to get it to move with this B&M converter. And with this new converter, honestly, I could daily drive this thing now. I was talking to Uncle Ray on the phone just a little while ago, and I was like, man, it drives almost like the DR Nova does, which makes sense because, you know, it's similar stall speed, and the converter that we have in the DR Nova is actually a pretty tight converter too. But yeah, the whole feel of the car is different now, guys. For you guys that don't understand, when you're blowing through a converter, basically that converter is absorbing a lot of the horsepower that the engine's putting out, it's never even reaching the transmission, let alone the rear tires. And the way this B&M converter was blowing through, I was probably losing a good 150 horsepower at least at the wheels. So it kind of took me off guard, because when I turned the boost controller on, apparently I'd already turned it down in the tune or something, because it only made about between 10 and 11 pounds of boost according to the data log. But this thing jumped from like 38 mile an hour to 101 mile per hour. And again, this is according to the data log, in like less than 3 seconds. And that was even with the boost ramping in. So it kind of caught me off guard, guys, because honestly, 10 pounds of boost with a converter that's actually coupling and holding the power feels stronger and pulls harder than 14 or 15 pounds of boost, or in our case 17 pounds of boost that's just blowing through a converter. If that makes sense. I mean, it's essentially like a clutch slipping the whole time. Yeah. But point is, I wasn't expecting the car to pull as hard as it did and pick up speed as fast as it did. That's why in the video I was just like, oh, totally didn't expect the car to pull like that. But yeah, guys, I think we're going to be really happy with this converter. Unfortunately, we are going out of town, so I'm not going to be able to get the car to the track this weekend. And then the next weekend I have to work, but I want to get the car back to the track as soon as possible, guys, because it feels like a whole different machine now. It really does. It's amazing what a difference, you know, going from a really sloppy torque converter to a really tight torque converter can make. The only thing I'm worried about is if it's going to hurt my 60-foot innie. And I'm still worried about how much boost exactly I'm going to be able to build without a trans brake, just foot braking it off the two-step. The little test you saw that I did in the video, the back wheels did start to spin a little bit, so that may have actually kind of helped with it building boost. But it seemed to build boost even faster with the tighter converter than it did with the loose converter. So I guess we'll see, guys. But I just wanted to show you guys the new converter, how it's acting. Wanted to let you guys know about the problem with the losing crank signal, and you know, as usual, just showing you something else to look out for. And I want to give props too, before I end this video, to Alex Parker, because he's actually the one, I had a little exchange with him on Facebook, and he actually had the same problem with his twin turbo truck that he just built, his Silverado. It was doing the same thing, and he ended up just replacing the sensor and fixing that too. So, you know, it's kind of where I got the idea to look at or not the sensor, but the plug. That's where I got the idea, was from Alex. So anyway, guys, Cece's running good. She's ready to go back to the track as soon as I get time to take her back. So hopefully I will have you another video very soon of a track day, and hopefully we'll take this thing into the fives on the next track day, if they let us. Because keep in mind, this is still a full weight, full interior car. There's no cage or anything. So I'm really wondering how far, and I could take it to English Mountain, and I will take it to English Mountain, and you know, they'll probably let me slide. But at Knoxville, especially with the new owner, I really don't know the new owner that well. I'm kind of wondering how far they're going to let me go before they finally say something about the cage, because they jumped on me pretty quick about the fire suit as soon as I busted into the sixes. So I don't know. I guess we'll see, guys. That's it. CC's running good. Really happy with the Jegs XHD converter. So I'll see you in the next video, which is actually going to be a product review, and it's something that I think some of you guys are actually going to like. So until then, get out in the garage, get something done, and I'll see you next time here on Bad Luck Garage.